The stars of the distant Sarian system glimmered coldly against the black canvas of space. Captain Rylan Kane's ship, the Vigilant, moved silently through the void, its hull humming softly as it navigated the edge of the Velyari territory. Humans had only recently discovered the system, and each encounter with the alien species had been cautious, tense. The Velyari were technologically advanced, their ships swift and their strategies precise. For Rylan, caution was not enough. Vigilance was everything. He leaned against the viewport, studying the distant planet below. Reports had indicated movement in the northern valleys, small settlements the Velyari had built. Officially, humans were not at war with them, but skirmishes had erupted in the past. Every mission was a balance between exploration and survival. Rylan adjusted his comms headset and spoke softly to his small team of scouts. "Stay sharp. Keep your sensors active. We don't know what we might run into." The team moved down from orbit in their small reconnaissance pods. As the surface grew nearer, Rylan could see the alien architecture, slender towers of glimmering silver and bronze, connected by arcs that pulsed with light. The designs were elegant, almost delicate, yet the aura of defense was unmistakable. Somewhere within these structures, he knew, lived the Velyari who had grown wary of human presence. Their mission was simple: gather intelligence, avoid confrontation, and return. Simple, at least in theory. The first sign of trouble came as a flicker on Rylan's scanner. A group of small alien scouts moved through the valley, their armored forms reflecting the sun's pale light. They did not notice the humans yet, but time was short. The humans' sensors picked up movement from another direction, a Velyari patrol returning from a nearby outpost. Rylan held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. The patrol's formation suggested that any confrontation could quickly escalate. He exhaled slowly and whispered into the comms, "We need to keep distance, eyes only." It was then that he saw the small figure on the rocky slope ahead, a child. The alien child moved alone, faltering under the uneven terrain. Its small body seemed fragile compared to the humans and their bulky suits. But the child's presence was alarming. In Velyari society, children were rarely unattended. Something had gone wrong. Rylan's instincts screamed at him. Despite orders, despite danger, he could not leave the child behind. He signaled to the team, his voice low and firm. "I'm going down. Cover me." The scouts hesitated, but Rylan did not wait for arguments. He maneuvered his pod down to the rocky surface, landing with careful precision. The child turned at the sound, large eyes widening in fear. Its skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, the Velyari's natural luminescence making it seem otherworldly. The child stumbled and fell, scraping its knee. Rylan was immediately at its side, offering a hand. "Hey," he said gently. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The child's gaze flickered between him and the patrol now approaching from the valley floor. Panic rose in its eyes. Rylan knew he had seconds to act. He picked up the small figure, feeling the light weight of its body in his arms, and pressed himself against the rocky outcrop for cover. Shots rang out suddenly, alien weapons flashing with a sharp blue glow. Rylan's team fired back cautiously, creating a buffer. The child whimpered, curling closer to him. Rylan felt a surge of determination. He could not let this child be caught or harmed. Not by humans, not by Velyari. Using the jagged terrain, Rylan moved quickly, shielding the child with his body. Bullets and energy blasts barely missed, grazing rocks and kicking up dust. The Velyari patrol was methodical, but Rylan was faster, anticipating their movements and keeping the child safe. His mind worked on multiple levels at once, every footstep, every cover point, every escape route. The patrol seemed endless. More aliens appeared on the ridge above, cutting off potential retreat. Rylan knew he had to think faster. He ducked behind a protruding rock, holding the child tightly. The child's small hands clutched his armor, and Rylan whispered, "You're safe with me? I promise." The aliens paused, scanning the area, their movements cautious. From a distance, Rylan noticed a larger figure observing the chaos, a Velyari woman, imposing, tall and regal, her armor adorned with symbols he did not understand. She stayed on a high cliff, unmoving, yet her eyes were locked on him. For a moment, Rylan felt her presence like a weight pressing down, a mixture of judgment and curiosity. The child stirred in his arms, frightened by the standoff. Rylan adjusted his hold, moving forward slowly, always using his body to shield the alien from sight. He realized then that the mother's attention was not solely on the patrol. She was watching him. She had seen everything: the child alone, the danger, his unhesitating protection. In that moment, Rylan felt something shift in the dynamics of the encounter. The patrol seemed to hesitate, as if sensing the mother's silent command. The Velyari mother did not intervene yet, but her presence alone altered the course of events. Rylan exploited the pause, moving toward a narrow crevice that would provide temporary safety. Breathless but determined, he slid into the rocky hollow, setting the child down gently. "We need to move carefully," he murmured. The child looked at him, trust slowly replacing fear in its luminous eyes. Rylan realized then that the bond had begun, not through words but through courage and protection. Minutes passed in tense silence. The patrols above began to retreat, apparently called back by the mother. Rylan's team regrouped at the edge of the rocky slope, astonished but relieved. He checked on the child, ensuring it was unharmed. The Velyari mother's gaze remained fixed on him, distant but piercing. In that silent exchange, Rylan felt something unusual: recognition, respect, perhaps even admiration. He did not fully understand it, but he knew that what he had done, protecting an enemy's child, had earned a mark of distinction. In the eyes of the alien mother, he was no longer just an intruder. He was a protector. "Captain Kane," his lieutenant whispered, "we should get out of here." Rylan nodded, still keeping a careful eye on the child. "We are not finished yet. Move slowly, stay hidden. Follow my lead." As they navigated the treacherous cliffs, the child began to respond to his voice, mimicking small gestures and even offering a tentative smile. For Rylan, the moment was brief but powerful, a reminder that trust, even between enemies, could be earned through courage and kindness. Suddenly a shadow passed over them, and Rylan's heart skipped a beat. The Velyari mother had descended, not attacking, but moving with purpose. Her presence was imposing, and her aura commanded attention. She stopped a short distance away, observing the human carefully. Rylan held the child tighter, his instincts on high alert, but he did not retreat. She spoke, though the words were incomprehensible. Yet, in her tone, there was no malice. Rylan sensed a challenge, a question, and perhaps a test. He met her gaze steadily, refusing to show fear. The child nestled against him, unafraid, as if understanding that this human was its guardian. The alien mother tilted her head, considering him, before stepping back slightly, signaling to her remaining patrols to stand down. It was a small gesture, but in it lay acknowledgement. The human had acted with honor, bravery, and compassion. Rylan exhaled, relieved but alert. The encounter was far from over. The Velyari mother had not yet revealed her intentions, but he knew this moment had altered the course of events. The child was safe for now, and a bridge had begun to form between enemies. As the sun set over the jagged cliffs, Rylan held the child close, scanning the horizon for threats. He did not speak much. Words were not necessary. Courage had spoken, and in the silent understanding of a protector and a parent watching from afar, something extraordinary had begun to unfold. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, But here, in this narrow valley on a distant world, humanity's essence, its courage, compassion, and determination, had made its mark. Ryland Kane knew that the trials ahead would be even greater, but he was ready. For the child, for humanity, he would stand firm. And the Velyari mother, watching silently from her distant perch, had taken note. This human was unlike any other. The night on the alien world was quiet, almost eerily so. The jagged cliffs cast long shadows under the twin moons, and the wind whispered through the rocky crevices. Ryland Kane kept the child close, scanning the terrain for any signs of danger. Though the Velyari patrols had retreated, he knew better than to assume the threat was gone entirely. The Velyari mother, tall and commanding, had not left the area. She was still observing, her presence as palpable as the cold wind. The child, now calm, rested lightly against Ryland's chest. Its luminescent skin flickered faintly in the moonlight, casting soft reflections against his armor. Ryland studied the small figure and felt a deep sense of responsibility. This was no longer just a reconnaissance mission. It was a duty to protect life, even that of an enemy's child. Movement caught his eye. From a ridge above, the Velyari mother descended, stepping lightly but purposefully over the rocks. Her armor gleamed in the moonlight, her symbols glowing faintly. She did not speak, yet the air around her felt charged. Ryland instinctively positioned himself between her and the child, though he did not move aggressively. He trusted in his skill, in his experience, but also in his instincts that told him she might not intend to attack. The mother stopped a short distance away. Ryland could sense her analyzing him, measuring his reactions, weighing his intentions. He held the child closer, speaking softly to it in a language of reassurance he had developed through the day. The child responded with small gestures of trust, reaching a tiny hand toward his face. For several minutes, they simply observed each other, the tension palpable. Then, almost imperceptibly, the mother made a subtle gesture, lowering her weapon slightly. Ryland understood the meaning. She was testing him, judging whether he was worthy of her attention, perhaps even her trust. He did not flinch. Instead, he slowly nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her assessment. Without warning, a distant rumble shook the cliffs. Ryland stiffened. It was not natural. A heavy set of armored Velyari reinforcements was moving quickly toward their location. Their patrols had not fully retreated. They were regrouping. Ryland's mind raced. He needed to protect the child and escape the approaching forces, but the terrain was treacherous. The cliffs offered narrow passages, but only if he could move quickly and carefully. The mother shifted her stance, then moved closer to him. Though her presence was imposing, she made no hostile gestures. It was almost as if she had chosen to observe rather than fight, a remarkable decision for a commander of her rank. Ryland realized that her respect had been earned through his courage and selflessness. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her unspoken alliance. Ryland scanned the path ahead and found a narrow crevice leading down to a lower valley, a route that could give them cover and a chance to escape. "We move now," he whispered to the child, though he knew the Velyari mother could understand everything by watching their actions. The child nodded faintly, its trust absolute. They moved with careful precision, Ryland placing himself between the child and any potential threats. He used his body and armor as a shield, guiding the child through jagged rocks and narrow ledges. Above, the mother kept pace, her movements deliberate, powerful, and graceful. She was no longer just a watcher. She was a guardian in her own right, silently acknowledging Ryland's authority over the situation. The distant patrols drew closer, their energy weapons glowing faintly in the darkness. Ryland counted them mentally, 5, 6, 7, and realized they could be surrounded in minutes. He needed a plan, something bold and clever. Then he spotted it. an overhang above the lower valley, jagged but stable. If they could reach it, they could use it as a vantage point, then descend safely to a hidden cave below. He glanced at the mother, who tilted her head slightly, indicating understanding. She moved with him as they ascended quickly, using the rocks as cover. The child held tightly to Rylan, its trust unwavering. Every step was calculated, every movement precise. The patrols below were cautious but persistent, unwilling to risk a direct confrontation in the dangerous terrain. When they reached the overhang, Rylan positioned the child behind a protruding rock and whispered, "Stay close. I will keep you safe." The mother stood nearby, silent but vigilant, as if guarding both him and the child. Rylan scanned the patrols below, considering his options. Using quick thinking, he found a small fissure leading downward, a hidden path the patrols had not noticed. "This way," he whispered, and carefully led the child toward it. The mother followed, her movements fluid and precise. The patrols scanned the area, frustrated, unable to detect their escape. Rylan's ingenuity and courage had turned a desperate situation into an opportunity for survival. The fissure led to a hidden cave, deep enough to provide cover and safety. Once inside, Rylan let the child rest, its small body curling against his armor. He took a deep breath, allowing himself a moment of relief. The Velyari mother remained near the entrance, her gaze sharp but not hostile. She seemed to be assessing him once more, weighing his actions and intentions. Minutes passed, and the tension began to fade. The child, now resting safely, reached out and touched Rylan's arm lightly, a silent gesture of gratitude. Rylan smiled softly, understanding that trust had been forged in the heat of danger. Even the Velyari mother's posture softened slightly. Then she spoke, her voice clear and commanding, though Rylan could not understand the words. Yet, the tone carried meaning, respect, curiosity, and acknowledgement of his bravery. He realized she was communicating without language, recognizing the qualities that defined him: courage, compassion, and ingenuity. For a long moment they stood silently, a human, an alien child, and the mother observing each other in quiet understanding. The patrols outside eventually moved away, leaving the valley empty. Safety had been earned, but the bond formed in those moments was something far greater. Rylan understood then that the mother's intentions were not hostile. She had tested him, watched his actions, and found him worthy. In the child's eyes, he was a protector. In the mother's eyes, he was something remarkable, a human capable of honor, bravery, and selfless courage. As the first rays of dawn touched the cliffs, Rylan held the child gently, scanning the horizon. The mother stepped forward slightly, lowering her weapon entirely. It was a gesture of acknowledgement, a recognition of his actions and the trust he had earned. Rylan spoke softly to the child, who responded with a small, glowing smile. The mother observed, her luminescent eyes reflecting the rising sun. In that quiet moment, a bridge had been formed between species, a bridge built not with words, but with courage, protection, and empathy. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult. The galaxy was vast, full of danger and uncertainty. But Rylan Kane had proven that humanity's true strength lay not in technology or numbers, but in its willingness to protect, to care, and to act with honor even in the face of enemies. The mother finally spoke again, and though he could not understand her words, he sensed an offer of alliance, a promise of cooperation. Rylan nodded, understanding that trust, once earned, could transcend language, species, and conflict. He turned to the child, holding it close. "We'll be safe now," he whispered. The child responded with a small, warm gesture, leaning against him. Together they watched the sun rise over the jagged cliffs, the Velyari mother standing guard nearby, silent but watchful. In that moment, Rylan Kane understood something profound. Humanity had a place in the stars, not just as explorers or warriors, but as protectors and allies. The child's safety, the mother's respect, and the fragile peace they had earned symbolized a future where courage, honor, and empathy could shape the destiny of worlds. The patrols were gone, the immediate danger past, but the bond formed in that rocky valley would endure. Rylan knew that wherever humans went, their strength would not only be measured by skill or weaponry, but by their ability to act with bravery and compassion. As they prepared to leave the hidden cave and continue their journey, the mother gave a subtle signal. It was a gesture of respect, a silent promise that she had seen him, recognized him, and accepted him in a way few humans ever had been. Rylan nodded, understanding fully. The child, safe and trusting, remained at his side, and together they moved forward, guided by courage, intelligence, and the enduring power of humanity. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but here, in this small valley, they had created something extraordinary. Trust, understanding, and the promise of a future where humans and aliens could stand together, not as enemies, but as allies. Rylan Kane took a deep breath, ready for whatever came next. He had protected the enemy's child with his own body, earned the respect of a powerful alien mother, and proved that the strength of humanity was not in domination, but in compassion and courage. And as they stepped into the new day, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that one human's bravery could change the fate of worlds.